Thank you, Katie. So we, I just want to make sure we're
in the frame.
Yeah. So we're here at the Parrish Museum inside the Dream Machine, which is something that was imagined by Suchi, Reddy, an architect and designer, and Sara Meltzer, who is a gallerist, and they are producing artist-designed objects that are here inside the Dream Machine at the Parrish. So, and one of the things that is an artist-designed object is Public Utility 2, which is what we are actually broadcasting with, of which we are using devices developed in conjunction with some colleagues of mine at Rice University and Voom, the company that is commercializing that. We have an experimental license from the FCC to be able to use these unused frequencies, and it's really, I think, it's really an honor to have you, and to talk about Amber Waves Farms through Amber Waves of Grain.
Right.
And I think it's appropriate that we actually are talking about land because, in effect, these unused frequencies are real estate. So I think you have a great narrative that I'm sure you've shared on many occasions, but the fact that we are talking about this unused real estate, and I think just if you could give a little bit of background of how you started farming. Are you from the East End? Because what we're also trying to do is have things emanate locally,
right,
and make them then expand from there. So,
well, thank you for having me.
Sure.
I will start with the background.
Yeah.
I am half Californian, half Texan.
Oh,
so
wait.
I am not native to the East End.
Where in California and where in Texas?
I was born in Pasadena.
Okay.
I grew up in Southern California and San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time there. So I found my way to the East End after having graduated USC with a degree in foreign policy and became interested in food policy.
Okay.
But wanted to know how to grow food before I was going to push paper around and advise on policy. So I found the East End through a book. Scott Chasky wrote a really beautiful book called This Common Ground. And he described an apprenticeship program, which is a program where you work on an organic farm for a season and you learn the skills of the trade, and then in place of going back to graduate school. So that's what drew me here, and I did the apprenticeship.
How long is it?
10 months.
Okay.
Start to finish.
So you go through an entire growing season.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where I met my now business partner, Amanda Marrow. It was also her first year farming.
Okay.
So, you spend a lot of time crawling around on your hands and knees on this organic farm, planting hundreds of thousands of plants and dreaming about what next season's going to be like. Because we both really liked the work. It was really hard, and the learning curve was really steep. But it became very clear to me very quickly that I wanted to learn more. I wanted to keep farming. I wasn't ready to go back into the policy world. So we had the opportunity to start Amber Waves Farm the following season after the apprenticeship. A plot of land, 7.5 acres, came up for lease just adjacent to where we were learning. Okay. So we knew we still had access to our mentor, Scott. We knew that it was kind of like training wheels farming right here too. But the Peconic Land Trust leased the property to us in 2009.
Okay.
So we're 7 years into Amber Waves.
Wow.
It's an adventure. It's so great. We are so busy right now. But
I know that's why I was thank you, and to have any of your time knowing that farming doesn't stop. It's not like you can put it on hold,
Winter is for resting.
Yeah.
Which is good. But Amberwave's farm is, it's a community organic farm. We think of ourselves kind of as a hybrid. We're a 501c3 educational farm, but are actively engaged in food production for chefs and eaters in our community here. So it's a nice balance of both, teaching people where the food's coming from, putting a face back on food, and growing food.
So what are you? I have a lot of questions. Okay, so you're leasing the land, and what was it being farmed before you?
It was like loosely being farmed, not aggressively for food production. I think it was cover cropped and maybe one crop per year. It was family owned it for many years before the land trust stepped in. So yes, it had been farmed, but when we walked on the property, it felt fallow, and so we had a blank slate to start with, which was nice. We weren't stepping into an operation that was already up and running by any means, which made it difficult and terrifying and awesome all at the same time. So we started with 7 acres, and now we're up to 25.
Wow.
All leased land.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, yeah.
It's good. It's been steady growth. Yes, we're busy, but it's been steady growth.
So what did you start out growing, and does that continue? And there's, I mean, I'm sure crop rotation and who works with you, and so I guess first, what did you first put in the ground, and how has that actually evolved?
We, in our apprenticeship, learned that diversity is key for a small-scale organic farm. So we are planting 350 varieties of fruits, vegetables, flowers, grains, and then we have a flock of laying hens and ducks for eggs. So it's a broad spectrum of fruits and vegetables, specialty crops, and then the grains component, which was really the impetus and hence the name for the farm. There was a missing component in the food shed out here, and really kind of in New York in general at the time. Growing wheat for bread baking and wheat berries was not common. It had gone to the Midwest, and it hadn't yet come back, although New York is certainly going through a grain revival right now. So we thought a way to differentiate ourselves was to grow something that nobody else was growing. And we were trained to grow vegetables, but started experimenting with grains. And it's going well. It's good. And in terms of who works with us, we rely very heavily on our crew of apprentices. We wanted to pay it forward. So it took us a few years to feel comfortable with our own systems that we created at our farm. So in year 4, we started an apprenticeship program ourselves. And now this year we have a crew of 10. There's 10 total.
Wow.
So it's, Amanda always likes to say that our most important crop is this new generation of people that are interested in farming. And she's right. I mean, the more that we can train people about where their food's coming from and how to grow it, and then they're branching out from there, I think is the crux of our work. I mean, it's nice to grow a tomato, but to train a farmer is much more enjoyable and rewarding for us, for sure.
So talk a little bit about policy, because that's one of the things actually too that's a part of public utility too, is really to use policy as a material, right? So in setting up the apprenticeship program and then now being a farmer, right, how that gives you both the authority and an authenticity in terms. Oops. That happens. It's technology.
That is.
It's like when you're in the middle of your concert at Carnegie Hall.
Right.
Somebody doesn't turn the.
Oops.
So I'm just like with industrial farming and, you know, actually I was just at something in San Francisco with Michael Pollan, and so the, you know, conversations, of course, about food came up, and I mean, how active are you in that part of it? Because it seems like you have, you know, that background, and it's really important to give voice to, you know, food production and the scale of how you're like re-engaged with your community and beyond.
I am involved on the very much the soil level right now, and I think ultimately both Amanda and I would like to do as much as we can on the policy level. We have just put our time in on the ground, which I think it was the most valuable thing we could do in terms of where our voices could be of service in food policy or the lack thereof in this country right now. I think that it's certainly our intention to be available to any policymaker who wants to talk to a young, well-educated, boots-on-the-ground farmer who sees what it takes to farm, who sees how their community is responding to a small-scale agriculture production, the shift I think that this country is ready to make, has to make. Certainly is happening in the Northeast, but in California I don't really have my finger on the pulse of what's going on. Michael Pollan's neck of the woods. Yeah. But it's similar things. Small-scale agriculture cropping up is a product of, certainly for a farmer, it's a manageable human-scale size. It's something that's a lifestyle and is rewarding, and you can stay connected with your community and your eater. So I think that's a model that we are trying to promote here and train our new crop of farmers in this scale that's realistic and that's easy on the earth because you're paying attention to the soil and you're paying attention to the earth. So a patchwork of that sort of a system is certainly what we're going for. I think farmers are just ready to start talking about that and the realistic challenges we face with food production. There are many. We obviously scaled up for a reason because we thought the industrial production was going to be more suitable and more efficient. But there are so many costs that are not talked about that we're currently paying for in that system that we're trying to backpedal out of that and find a better way.
So how do you split what's the division of labor between the two of you?
We both did every single job on the farm for the first 6 years.
So what would that be like in the morning? We wake up and...
First thing, you're on the email, you're checking for orders, which came in from a chef at 2 a.m., which you're receiving at 6 a.m., which you're going out into the field to start picking. So there's that. So it's the email check of what's coming in. Arriving to the farm for morning chores, so that's greenhouse work, chickens, gates, field checks, making sure things are set up, tools are in place. Setting the crew up is the task unto itself, and assigning work. And then it's this time of year, it's really all aspects of the farm. So it's seeding in the greenhouse still. We start all the seedlings there on site, transplanting, weeding, crazy amount of weeding right now, harvesting, delivering. And it's really food production from seed to the end. It's from the beginning till it reaches the chef's prep table or your dining room table. So everything that is in between that. The division of labor that has happened this year, Amanda's in charge of the crew. She spearheads our CSA, so it's 150 families that come to the farm to pick up their box of food once a week.
So from this area. And did you, did you set up the CSA initially to have capital to, you know, purchase your seeds and some equipment and like how...
It is a perfect model for that. It was not really our intention to become the CSA farm that we are. We were going easy on ourselves the first year. We're like, we'll do a little bit of CSA and a little bit of restaurant sales and a little bit of farmer market sales. See what we like the best, see what sticks, see what the community wants. Our model, Scott's Farm, Quill Hill Farm, is a CSA farm, one of the oldest in New York State. And so we knew that was going to be a component of it, and we saw the value in having your eater invest with you right up front. Is I think the way forward for any new beginning farmer to get that buy-in from your eater right away is good for morale and good for the bank account. But we started with 20 families. One dear friend, Eileen Roman, sent an email and said, "Hey, some friends are starting a farm," and it grew from that seed that she planted. So we didn't set out necessarily to have 150 member CSA, although I think we could grow it now to 250 because the demand's incredibly high for that sort of thing right now.
Well, and that's also, you know, an indication of what you're doing and how you're doing it, right? I mean, like what's being grown, and then also that it's you, right? It's the two of you, and how many women are farming and setting up farms these days? I mean, it's more than more in this very narrow, specific area of agriculture on the scale that we're at, growing things organically. It's more, we are seeing certain applications with and for women. So I don't know if that's because we're receiving more female applicants because of who we are, but serving all of the local Sylvester Manor and Quill Hill and Balsam Farms, there are more women that are getting into this. More women than men that are getting into this. And so now, I mean, life commitment to do. I mean, the you know, it's it's a commitment. Yeah, it is more of a commitment than I could have ever imagined. And did that take adjusting? I mean, I'm sure there's certain moments of where you're just like, okay, that's like, I want to throw up my hands and... Right. I think just with, like, I'm sure with your work too, you know, I mean, you lock in and you're so committed and you just do whatever you have to do to get it done, and because you love it and you'll do it. We have both sacrificed a lot to do that, and it's wonderful and great, and I think that anything that you do that you love, I think it's inevitable. Yeah, definitely. So I see ourselves kind of evolving out of like blood, sweat, and tears moments because we have more help with the apprentices now. So it's shared work. More hands really makes lighter work. Yeah. So it's kind of coming into a new phase of teaching instead of doing. Teaching and doing. It's not instead of. Yeah. I made a delivery before I came here, so I'm still walking through the back doors of kitchens. In terms of what you're growing now, right? I mean, talk about the grains and what else? I mean, yeah. This week, so they're here to stay for a little while, which is good. We don't do corn, although people are obsessed with sweet corn in a strange, fetishy kind of way. But it's hard to grow, very difficult to grow corn organically.
And so it's one crop we've elected not to put in our rotation. Other things that we have, the wheat harvest is happening in 2 weeks, so that's a major summertime event, which is a 9-month growing cycle. It's winter wheat, so we do hard red winter wheat, soft white winter wheat, planted in October, harvest in July.
And then where does it go from harvest to?
We are currently doing all of the post-harvest cleaning, storing, drying, and then the next, what we thought was going to be the next most important step was milling, but people are requesting wheat berries, not whole wheat flour. So I think there's been a wheat berry salad revival. It's like, my mom was like, God, really, we're back to this? This is it's like from the 60s and 70s. I don't know why we're back to this, but we're back to it.
The Moosewood cookbook.
It is so popular right now. For a good reason. They are good. And so we're holding the food crop in the wheatberry form. And then if we are milling it we work with a baker, Carissa. We are just using a very small scale tabletop stone electric grinder that does an excellent job. It's milled tens of thousands of pounds of flour for us, but it's really mini scale. So, and a miller's job is one unto itself. It's not the farmer's job, and it's not the baker's job. It's certainly someone's area of specialty. And the reason we started with the idea of wheat, in addition to wanting to fill a gap in the food shed, was that there's a history of wheat here on Long Island, and we knew that. Specifically with the East End, we were looking around, seeing all the windmills, did some research. This is the first place in North America that wheat was grown by the European settlers. So it's a historical crop for the East End, and we got a lot of pushback.
Really?
It wouldn't work, it's too humid, etc. And it is humid here. It's humid right now. And the wheat is not loving it, but we are able to... Disease and that sort of a thing is in grains. It likes it hot and dry, and that's kind of it. But we've devised some systems to dry it down, just basically with fans and forced air, and it's working. We have 16 acres in the ground right now.
Wow. So
we're sharing that responsibility with other farmers.
Okay.
And that's kind of back to your point earlier of real estate here, and agricultural land here. We have to grow the wheat inside of a deer fence because we have that pest pressure there. And it's value per acre, to grow a wheat crop on it doesn't make a lot of sense to a lot of farmers, but we're not treating it as a commodity crop, we're treating it as a specialty crop. So we have a few other farms on board who are planting a couple acres here, a couple acres there, and so cumulatively we can amass a decent amount.
How is the farming community in terms of I mean, it's like you always say, like, people who work with plants usually are pretty okay. I mean, right? I mean, it would be hard
really
not to be. And
good people. Yeah. And I was not from here, as they said, but there's 400 years of agricultural history here, more than anywhere in the country. I mean, this is one of the deeply rooted ag communities, and there are many families with 13, 14, 15 generations on that are still farming, that welcomed us, that were surprised. Like, who are the new kids? But that were welcoming. I mean, they know how hard it is.
Yeah.
And so the community is such that there's the new generation, or generations, the old families that have been here for hundreds of years, but I think everybody comes together in a not surprisingly supportive way, but a comfortingly supportive way. Because it's a lifestyle and everybody gets it, whether you're growing organically or not, or your scale is 100 acres or 1 acre. The concepts are the same, and the work is hard, and everybody gets that. So people pitch in and share equipment and help each other.
That's important. Yeah.
It is important.
Because it's hard to do it by yourself.
Right, and we wouldn't, I mean, so many people helped us get started and continue to help us. So it would not have been possible if the farming community here was such that people were turning their backs or dismissive. It was hugely supportive.
One of the things, so when being out in California, and I went to see some friends who have, actually, they just started a vineyard, and they're just in their 3rd season of harvesting. But because of the water issue there, and we were talking about the introduction of actually technology into farming with sensors and what you were talking about in terms of, you know, the fans to dry out the wheat and those kinds of conditions. Is that something you're seeing? Or is it really, you know, you go out and you know that this is what's needed because obviously it's being felt, and there's, you know, you can measure what the humidity is, and then you know exactly what needs to be done.
We're pretty low tech.
Yeah.
We certainly do not have the same water issues that are going on in California. The Northeast is blessed with very consistent rainfall for agriculture, and water is certainly plentiful on the East End, and Amagansett in particular, we're sitting on top of an aquifer, so that's not a particular challenge that we face, but in terms of technology, we're still very low tech. Somebody, when we were asking, how do you know when the grain is dry enough, somebody said, well, if you don't have any equipment, just bite into it. just go with your gut, go with your instinct. Can you bite through it?
Yeah.
No? It's hard as a rock? You're done. You're there. Wow, that is really...
That's pretty good method.
folksy, but it totally works. Yeah. We've upgraded slightly to a grain moisture tester, which is a small piece of equipment. But on our scale, the equipment investment really is in tractors and the ability to make work more efficient that way. Not yet with... Well, we have a very efficient irrigation system, drip system, and so there's some small technological advances that are helping us. But,
and do you have one of those like rolling chicken coops that
we do. We do.
It took organic fertilizer?
It's a great system. It took us many years to set up. I wish we would have done it sooner. But it's a coop on wheels. It can hold, I think right now we have like 125 or 150 chickens. And they hop inside to sleep at night, and they run around all day, and we just move them with our crop rotation. So they're deeply integrated into the farm now. Really important part of the farm. For the first couple of years, they were just by themselves. Outside, in a corner, not doing enough work. So they're eating grass, they're eating bugs, they're fertilizing, they're moving on to the next field. It's a good system. Really important. The animal, grain, vegetable, trifecta for an organic farmer. If you can kind of achieve that so that one is feeding the next, is feeding the next, is feeding the soil and back around again, that's
great.
That's what we're trying to achieve. It's hard.
So, summer's obviously not, but winters, you have downtime. What happens then? And
I always thought it was going to be more downtime than it actually is.
Yeah.
Because November rolls around and it's like end of the year accounting, and then crop planning in December, and then hiring people in January, and then seed ordering, and then you're right back in it again. So, I have like 6 to 8 weeks to regroup. The pace is much different, obviously.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sitting. So it's just a different type of work, which took me a long time to get used to, because it's really like flipping the switch in the spring and turning it off in the fall. It's very weird. You go from like 0 to 60 and then 60 back to 0. It's a strange cycle, but it's, everyone's like, oh, it's getting dark so early in the winter, and I'm like, thank God, all I want to do is sit down. I'm thrilled. So you match up with the cycle. Your body clock matches up with the cycles. Took a few years.
So I'm just trying to look at our time. We have a little bit more time to. So, and then also, what about being out here now? I mean, you know, of course, there's people that live here year round and are, the local residents and farmers and then there's the summer, crowd that comes in, and that's another ecosystem, if you will. Does that impact, you in any way?
It does, because it drives the economy.
Okay.
We have 8 weeks where there are a lot of people here, and the food's here, and it's like that moment to capitalize on what you've spent time growing for 4 months, and then people are here to buy it and eat it. So it's very important in that way. It's just a very interesting place to live, in that I'm a year-round resident here. I do get away a little bit in the wintertime. But I think because I'm working outside and I'm working with the seasons, like, I can kind of ease into the summer crowd and the summer rush, because we've been building up in the spring and early summer, and then it's boom, the food's here and the people are here and the energy's here, and you do what you have to do and you make it work, and then it kind of trails off into the fall. So there's still a lot of farm work, and it's the local